Everyone, thank you so much for being here. Uh, I'm Joe Myers, and of course, we have David Barron. Today, we'll be discussing what is the subconscious mind. We're going to cover models versus theories and provide you with a foundation for understanding the subconscious. I'd like to ask kindly that you all stay muted during this. At the bottom of the screen, if you have a question, there's a little heart, and you can raise your hand, and we'll take you. It's going to be broken up into three sections. So when you have, I hope you have questions for us. And David, take it away.
All right, Joe, I'm going to give you the host. So there we go.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Okay. Welcome everybody. I had some inspirations recently about the subconscious mind, and so I wanted to go into the whole concept of the subconscious mind. I want to make it clear there to talk about the subconscious mind. Yeah, important to talk about the difference between a theory and a model. Uh, Theories are great. A theory essentially answers the question, why does this happen? So if you have a theory that answers why does this happen, you can test it, you can prove that it's wrong, you can falsify it, and it's incredibly useful once you have that theory. But when we're talking about the mind, there's theories are hard to test. So instead, what we have is a model, and the best way to understand a model is it answers the question, how can we make sense of this? And if you've ever interacted with another human being, you have asked that question, how can I make sense of this person? Because some of them don't make sense, and so it's good to create a model of how people think. So the mind, every description that involves the subconscious mind is a description of a model. Everyone here has probably heard the map is not the territory. And to be more specific, a very old, out of date map can still help you get to a location because it acts as a very good model for the area, the location. And so think of it in those terms. If you want to talk about various models of the mind that involve the subconscious, of course, you can go back to Freud. He didn't, he talked about the conscious and the pre-conscious, and he talked about the unconscious. They're all very different. They all had different qualities to them. Um, Jung, if you study Carl Jung, there are some interesting things that are very good to talk about with the subconscious mind. But most hypnotists, when they talk to any group of people or any client, they're typically going to talk about the subconscious mind as opposed to the conscious mind. And while we're here, if let me take a look, we've got some people commenting in chat, see if make sure I'm reading any comments. Okay, all right, good enough. All right, so I think one of the better ways, I want you to think for yourself right now how you explain the subconscious mind to somebody. We'll go from there. I don't want you to volunteer it just yet, but I want you to think about how you explain the mind itself to somebody, and we can talk about that. Uh, Joe, you had some other questions we can sort of lead into.
Yeah, let me start. Here's a good one. This was emailed in. And by the way, I'll just make note of this. For anyone who is interested in the topic that we have coming up, uh, you can please, just email us the questions and we'll make sure they get covered.
Yeah.
So the first one is, why is it important for hypnotists to treat the subconscious mind as a model rather than a theory?
Uh, well, if you treat it like you can actually exchange those two in your mind, but you can't prove there is a subconscious mind. So it seems sort of useless. It's just a roadmap to sort of guide your interactions with people. It's not dangerous if you talk about the theory of the subconscious mind, but it really just isn't a theory. You can't prove it or disprove it. Um, that people talk about, can you prove NLP works? And NLP is just a model of how things should work, and it fits pretty well for what it does. But no, you can't prove it or disprove it, so it doesn't really fit as a theory. So that's one of the better answers.
Okay. A follow-up is, how do you personally explain this distinction to clients or students in a way that clicks?
Um, I'll tell you how I do it. I'll tell you how my mentor did it, and I'll tell you how most hypnotists do it. They all work. Uh, I basically just tell people there's a part of your mind that thinks it's helping you, and you're reaching a point where you realize this part of my mind is not helping me. I am reaching for a cigarette, even though I don't like them and I don't want them. Or it's 9 o'clock at night. I do not need a bowl of ice cream, but I'm eating a carton of ice cream. Why do I do this? So there's a part of your mind that thinks it's helping you. It's not broken, but it believes it's helping you. That's your subconscious mind. Now that for me is the best description to a client that I can think of. And as a general rule, they agree. They say, yes, I do not want to be eating ice cream at 9 o'clock at night, but I keep doing it, so it's got to be a part of me that's doing it. Now, to get more technical, my mentor, Jeff Stevens, to talk to when he was teaching hypnotists, he would say that the conscious mind is the part that you're aware of, and you are associated into it. You are feeling it. You are in it right now. It is you that's experiencing it. So it is an associated experience. But the subconscious mind is dissociated. It's somewhere out here. And deep hypnosis is dissociated by some quality, maybe a huge amount, some quality. You're experiencing something entirely you that's there. And going back to the old definition of hypnosis, it's where you bypass the critical factor. If you're disassociated, you're not able to judge whether something you're being told to do makes sense or not. It just doesn't even happen. That critical factor that says, no, this is stupid, I should do this, it's just not there. So that's how my mentor taught me about the subconscious mind. The
Well,
typical
David, could you maybe share a time for everyone when treating the subconscious as a model gave you more freedom and creativity in a session?
um, well, let me continue on with this part. That's
Okay.
I'll have to ponder that question because I'm trying to think of an answer right set myself right now. But
Okay.
the typical description that you'll have hypnotists talk about the subconscious mind is they'll talk about first the iceberg. You've all seen the iceberg. There's 10% above the water line. That's your conscious mind. And there's a huge amount below that is your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind, and think of it this way, for this concept, the conscious mind is only what you are aware of right now. Now, it is not a lot that you're aware of right now, but it's an incredible sort of focus. You're aware of where you're seated, what you're hearing, you're aware of some thoughts, uh, but there's a whole bunch below the surface that you're not aware of. That's all there in your subconscious mind. You are not aware of all the memories you've experienced in your life, and yet if you take some time, you can find them, you can recover them. Your your emotions are part of your subconscious mind. And I use that as an example because all of us have had some experience where emotions simply well up outside of any conscious control. And so emotions are a part of the subconscious mind. Um, there are parts of our subconscious mind that are meant to protect us, and parts of our subconscious mind that are designed to give us security and comfort us. And many of the problems the subconscious mind has, they're there because in that moment they first came about, they worked. Think about a child who's feeling neglected, and the first thing the parents do is say, have some ice cream. And so ice cream, at least they quit crying. And you do that enough time, maybe not even very many times at all, and it becomes just something linked in their mind. Uh, Another way of creating a really strong unconscious process is through a very painful trauma. So, for example, if you witness someone, well, it can't even, it doesn't have to even be terrible and traumatic. It just has to be confusing. I talk about this woman who blanked out a bunch of, she was in a with her family, and it turns out the trauma was having to witness her parents having sex at night, and so she just blanked it out. The subconscious mind said, "No, thank you, I don't want that." And there's sometimes habits and patterns can be affected by the subconscious mind just by having someone of authority telling you it's true. So if there's someone you trust, someone you believe in, someone who you believe cares about you, and they say something that's important, often, depending on the situation, the subconscious mind, especially that of a young child, will will accept that as true and just take it for granted. So all of this, as you talk to a client, describes the subconscious mind. And there's that part, again, this is in this description, where how are you going to get to the subconscious mind? There's a barrier in that big iceberg marked by the water level. That barrier is the critical factor. And to most clients, it never made sense to me as a person being hypnotized. We bypass the critical factor. I don't even know how to describe that to somebody. How do you bypass a critical factor? I can tell someone to go ahead and just follow instructions, and that will happen. And that's typically what happens. But once you explain this to them, and the reason that many hypnotists have a long pre-talk is to create a sense of comfort for the client, to tell them that their problem, even though it's annoying and it's difficult, it's also has a purpose to it, and to give them a sense of security, and to also demonstrate your own authority that you might be able to help them. So that is and again, all you have to do, go to YouTube, look for hypnosis, subconscious mind, and you'll find a whole list of hypnotists describing this very same process of the iceberg, or maybe they'll draw a circle, and just the very top of the circle is the conscious mind. The subconscious mind, the part below the iceberg, has a huge number of wants, and not all of those wants support each other. So you'll have one want heading in this direction saying, I want to be healthy. And you'll have another want in this direction saying, I'm afraid of the gym. You have another want in this direction saying, I want to look good. And another want in this direction saying, no, I want ice cream. So there's a lot of conflict happening within the subconscious mind. And it usually just has to find its way out. People who come to a hypnotist, they typically feel a conflict in whatever they're experiencing. And so your job is to resolve that conflict at the subconscious level. Um, okay, Joe, that completed my description. So you had a question.
Oh, yeah. If you could give us, a time when treating the subconscious as a model, gave you more freedom and creativity. And then, you know, also a question. This one's kind of interesting. What is your favorite metaphor for the subconscious?
I got this one from my mentor. The subconscious is like a brilliant 10-year-old. It is well-meaning, it is smart, but it only has a limited amount of experience. And it will follow instructions if given the right reasons, and it will make decisions very quickly based on the event or the situation. So, um, again, if as in that moment I'm hurt and someone gives you ice cream, the solution is, oh, well, now ice cream is the solution to all my problems. And you have people who come to you with that being their solution in life. Um, so again, for me, I'd say your subconscious mind is not evil to hurt you. It's simply doing the best it can with what it does. Now, I think back before we had hypnotists, we had exorcists, and the exorcists treated whatever they were trying to get rid of a demon. And you had to scare it, you had to threaten it, you had to exorcise it. Uh, and quite frankly, I can't imagine someone going through that who isn't further traumatized. But some people, uh, they seem to be better. At least they conform to what was expected. But the model of it being a child makes it a lot better. Um, one hypnotist I was very close with for a while, he did what was called, well, he called them exorcisms because he talked about there being parts of you that are hurting you, and but his exorcism was really not much different than talking to a brilliant 10-year-old. He would simply take that part up and he'd heal it. He'd make it feel whole and complete and make it feel completely satisfied. And then he'd say, you have to be here now that you have everything you want. And the spirit or the demon or whatever would say, no, I don't have to be here. It said, you can go right into the light. And people woke up and they felt great. So he had his own little model. The process was very similar in a lot of different ways. But for me, uh, to think about how to talk to the subconscious mind, consider how, if you want to just make this up on your own, I'll give you a couple models that work for me. If you want to make this up on your own, think of yourself as a child and ask yourself, how would I have wanted been taught? How would you want to be spoken to? How would you like to have been shown that you made a mistake? And how would you, having been shown you made a mistake, want to be corrected so that you do it? You can run that through in your head. That's one of the best ways to talk to the subconscious mind. Another way of thinking of it is if you've ever had an employee or if you were an employee and you did something wrong, what would the very best manager tell you about it? He would put you aside. He'd say, this was the problem. This is what you did wrong. And you're a valuable person here. You're part of a team and we want you to do it right. And we know that being a part of this team, there's a quality of sacrifice that's involved. What I'm going to ask you is, first of all, what you did, you know now not to do it. And from this point on, you do this and you do this and you do this. And you're an even deeper and more important part of the team. And then you get agreement. Uh, so that is typically how I would, if you want to sit down and imagine talking to the subconscious mind, do that one experiment with yourself. Write it up as if you're talking to the subconscious mind of a smoker. And of course, I have that. I have that in my manual, which is right here. But I'll leave I'll leave that up to you to experiment it. Understanding like that makes speaking to the subconscious mind so much easier. Now consider you're speaking to the subconscious mind, but you're also speaking to a person who is the container of that subconscious mind. How would you think you'd talk to that person? Ponder that question for a moment. Anyone want to raise their hand and suggest something, or open up their mic and suggest how would you? Okay, I will tell you how. You talk to that person exactly the same way. You talk to them as if they're important. You talk to them as if they're valuable. In fact, keep in mind, if you're talking to a person who's awake and not in hypnosis, and you're talking to them at a level that they feel valued, you are talking to their subconscious mind, and they'll start to get it. There's a section that I have in the manual. Let's see, it's on page 11. It's how to treat your clients. And what you do is you think of every interaction that you have. And if this is familiar, it's because I say it a lot. You think of every interaction, which include phone calls and text messages and emails. And you want to be able to accomplish at least one of these things. You want to provide reassurance. You want to create anticipation. You want to strengthen their ego so they feel good about themselves. And that means reaffirming their self-worth and their self-esteem and their positive self-image. You want to point out their successes because people tend to have successes, but for whatever reason, they don't think of them as important. You want to build optimism so they look forward to future. And you want to take things that are failures and reframe them as lessons. That's how you treat a client. It's also how you treat the subconscious mind. It's also how, if you treat everyone everyone you interact with like this, you don't just become a good hypnotist, you become a pretty damn good human being. And if you can start to personify this and remember that, it makes dealing with human beings so much easier. Yes, you're going to meet a lot of assholes in the world, but you're going to realize, okay, they're assholes for reasons that they would probably consciously not choose to be. So be aware of that, and again, do everything you can to validate that person. And let's see, yeah, Justin just reposted those things in the chat, so you can refer back. All right. Anything else, Joe?
Well, unless we have some questions, I think this is a great time to move into like the second part, comparing the models. And I know typically, you work with a main one,
Mm-hmm.
but, being familiar with all of the different ones, how do you decide on which model to use in a given situation? And, you know, well, which model of the subconscious do you find yourself returning to most often in your practice, and why? And before you answer that, Justin, if you would care to unmute yourself,
Yeah,
ask away.
it was regarding like when he first touched basis on the you know the one of the primary presuppositions of NLP, as we all know, is the foundation that the roadmap is not the territory. Now, I've never really understood that aforementioned presupposition. David gave me some inference to it as to what he said. Even an old, outdated map is still applicable because you can still use it as a point of reference, and it gave me some closure, validity on as to what it actually implies. I'm just curious, really, like the entirety of it. I know it's the core, belief that NLP is founded on, which is the roadmap is not the territory. What does that even really imply? Thank you.
Well, okay. I would take that as just what you're trying to do is not necessarily disprove the roadmap. You're trying to just make sense of it. So uh, again, I wouldn't give it a lot more thought than that. The NLP model is a decent model that makes sense and can, using the model, help make change. I don't know. I think Richard Bandler and Grinder really ran that motto into the ground. The math's not the territory. I get it. Okay. Focus on helping people. That's going to be the best thing you can do. I hope that will answer your question.
Right.
And oh yeah, Joe, you asked about useful models.
Yeah, before we get to that, I don't want to be, Anne, I saw that you did have your hand up. Was your question answered there, or was that a mistake? Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask it. And yeah, David, if you want to go ahead and answer, if Anne
Yeah.
had her question answered.
And unmute yourself. There we go. Looks like you, okay.
Okay, I guess the question was answered. So,
Okay, very good.
yeah.
All right. Now, other models of the mind are dependent upon, I would say, your interest in psychology. If you're a hypnotist, you can stick with this very simple model. You're talking to a person and you're talking to a part of that person that is brilliant and simple and contains a huge amount of resources, but it's not always a well-managed set of resources. That will work very well. If you want to dive super deeply into a useful model of the mind, I would say study Carl Jung. Amazing stuff, incredibly complex. What he does is talk about the deepest parts of the mind. He talks about not just the subconscious mind, but what he calls a collective conscience, which is something that has been built up over years of just biological evolution and cultural development. And in this, what did I just call it? What was it, Joe?
The cultural development. Yeah.
Yeah, the collective unconscious. In this collective unconscious, what has come are things that seem similar in many, many cultures. They are symbols, they are archetypes. So you have archetypes of the warrior, you have archetypes of the hero, you have archetypes of the king and the magician. And people tend to innately understand them in one way or another. As far as hypnosis goes, yeah, I don't think you have to deeply dive into it. But if you did dive into Carl Jung, you'll find it first fascinating. You'll find many things applicable. Not a lot is specifically useful to hypnosis, but you may find that some of it is. That would probably be where I would point someone the most. It just is incredibly fascinating. In fact, if you ever liked the original Star Wars trilogy, that's all Carl Jung symbolism, all the way through, all the way. It's the hero's journey that he called it. All right.
Wonderful. So I know you and I both have kind of similar backgrounds, how we started learning. So I'm curious what you would say. How does the Ericksonian model, viewing the unconscious as creative and resourceful, influence your own hypnotic approach? I know that was kind of your foundation as it was mine, but you moved on.
Yeah. I think thinking of it as creative and resourceful is very important. but don't think of it like it's resourceful in what it knows. But I've known some people who give the subconscious mind almost divine knowledge to the point where they would trust their subconscious mind choosing the medicines they take. I don't recommend that. Okay. You have a set of medicines in front of you and all you know is the names of them. And you say, okay, subconscious mind, which do you prefer? No, I would rely on a doctor to do that. However, you can, and Erickson did this very well. He would ask the subconscious mind, what is your best solution? And the subconscious mind, to solve the problem, will come up with its parts, with its solutions. And it would be very creative in how to do it. To instill that creativity, it's very good to remind the subconscious mind of how creative it is and to bring forth a sense of curiosity within the subconscious mind. You can do this with a person consciously by asking them to imagine, what would it be like if they just knew something wonderful was about to happen? They don't know what it is. Something wonderful is about to happen, and you don't know what it is. Now, in that moment, the conscious mind stops thinking inside and starts focusing outside, and it starts beginning to filter for things that are wonderful, whatever it could be. It could be the smell of lilacs. It could be finding a $20 bill, be a smile from someone who you weren't paying attention to before then. But you start to realize there are many, many wonderful things. And so that will instill this curiosity consciously. And the subconscious mind has that curiosity as well. A common thing you can ask the subconscious mind to do is, over the course of time between now, when we next meet, I want you to find solutions to this problem. And then when we get back, you get to share your solution. And sometimes what will happen is people will think about this consciously and they'll come up with their own solutions. Sometimes you'll go back into hypnosis and the subconscious mind will give the solutions. And many times people will return and realize they don't have the problem anymore, because whatever this solution was, it was found and implemented, and they don't have a conscious awareness of it. So that's a good way of sort of emphasizing this creativity. Ericksonian hypnosis. Let me just consider this for a moment. Well, the hypnosis for Ericksonian was not direct. I am really strong into doing direct hypnosis. So if you don't act as though you're talking to the subconscious mind. I say, I am talking to the subconscious mind, and then you talk to it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think very well. And I like you bring up how noticing the smile. I know Dave Dobson had the other than conscious hello, other than conscious being what he used instead of the subconscious. Um, going back to NLP, Virginia Satir was the one, one of the presuppositions in the NLP is, given the choice, people will always choose. If people recognize they have a choice, they will always choose the best options for them. So you touched on that. Any more thoughts? I think you did cover it. We kind of know what's best, but in certain areas, such as prescribing medicine for ourselves, maybe the professionals are better than ourselves.
I would say you will run across some people who have been so profoundly traumatized at such an early age that they can't make healthy decisions. They can only, in that case, what has happened is there have been parts of them so fragmented from other parts of themselves. They can only make changes by switching personalities or going into this different mode. And it's incredibly hard. I would recommend you don't work with them unless you've got a PhD in psychology and a lot of patience. Yeah. I think Alex has worked with some people like that before. Yeah. All right. Anything else? There's a couple things I do want to cover, but let's go ahead and ponder some questions you might have.
Okay. Anyone feel free to raise your hand, please do. I know that you have thoughts on how to communicate with the self-conscious in self-hypnosis. I think that's probably better towards the end of the next part.
Okay.
But let's move into talking to the subconscious. Uh, respectful, collaborative change work.
Okay. I have a 4-part structure that I work with when I'm talking with the subconscious mind. The first is as the hypnotist, you're talking to the subconscious mind and you are openly expressing to it that it is important, that it is loved, that it is essentially good. And in that frame, you explain to it what it did and that it did not work. So you're essentially good. You know you mean well, but you're continuing to cause John client to smoke, and you know that doesn't help him. So you simply explain that it's not working. The second step is to re-emphasize this love, this appreciation of the subconscious mind, that you are important, you're valued, you're cherished. I want you to feel that. And with that, understand there are some specific things you can do. So again, you have to emphasize the feeling, longing, importance, and love, and tell it what to do. And for stopping smoking, it's like smoking, it doesn't matter anymore. It's not important. He doesn't have to think about it. John, the client, does not have to think about it anymore. And from this point on, he gets to think of himself as a non-smoker. So you emphasize all the questions for stop smoking. And then you get the subconscious mind to agree it. For some people, it's an ideomotor signal. For me, I just ask the subconscious mind to nod the head. And the final step of this four-step process is to thank it and reassure the subconscious mind that it is important, it's valued. All of this is just wrapped in this really positive, warm feeling. So that's the typical way of instructing the subconscious mind. Questions, comments?
Well, I think that's really great how you do that, David. Because would you say, I mean, you're basically speaking to the subconscious as if it were, a protective child or, someone you're loyal to. Great. Please unmute, and we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, because it was me who suggested it last week. The question that I thought of is it necessarily explicit? So let me get my teeth in. Is it explicit that you address the subconscious mind, or can you just do it through suggestions in a state of relaxation with your client?
I do it explicitly, but you don't have to. The important part is you make the emphasis on the very positive feelings, the love and acceptance, very important, because that's the stuff that really goes into the subconscious mind, is the feelings. Again, go back to the fact that, yes, you can talk specifically to the subconscious mind, but why don't you talk to the hypnotized person as well in the same way? And then why don't you talk to the conscious person in exactly the same way? And it all integrates together. So it's not necessary to separate to the subconscious mind, but it's very useful, and I do that personally. So that's a very good question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. So, David, have you ever had a client's subconscious, push back or resist? If you have, how did you handle it? Or if you haven't, how would you handle it?
I have a philosophy that resistance isn't something a client demonstrates. It's something a hypnotist evokes from somebody. If someone is truly resisting, it's because I am not either done my job, or there's something about me that they don't like, or it's not the right setting, or they're not feeling safe. It's not the client entirely. It's I have to take responsibility. If I'm able to make them feel comfortable, if I'm able to make them feel secure, if I get their agreement to follow instructions, there should be very little resistance, if at all. And if I do a good induction, so they get way into it. So no, the resistance is a result of the hypnotist, not the client. Alex, you have a question? You can unmute.
Right. Right. Hope you can all hear me.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. I just said in the chat that I've had experience of something like that when a client just will not go into a trance no matter what. They're just not vibing it. But it's definitely coming from me, not from them. It's not that they've got this. To use the analogy from the Children of the Damned, the Midwich Cuckoos, you're thinking of a brick wall or something like that. If you ever watched that last movie that Christopher Reeve ever made before he became paralyzed, he sort of tried to keep the image of a bomb away from the children by imaging a brick wall, that sort of stuff. It's nothing to do with the person who is being hypnotized. It definitely comes from yourself as the hypnotist, that you're just not, you're just doing something and they're getting that, I don't know, that weird Mandrake the Magician sort of vibe. They think, hard pass.
Yeah. A good example, I remember early on, I got to demonstrate hypnosis at, I got invited to a gym and just sort of put up my wares and talk about hypnosis. So I got this young guy who was really macho and aggressive. Not aggressive, he wasn't aggressive, but he obviously had something in his mind about hypnosis that he was going to intentionally resist. And I did not address it. So, when I asked him to do something like an eye lock, he knew that he was there to challenge me as opposed to follow instructions. And so he opened his eyes. And then I only after the fact and with reflection and experience, I realized, no, that was really my responsibility. And I just did not prepare him appropriately. So thank you, Alex.
So, okay, one more thing as well. It's another personal anecdote. I was trying to get a woman. She was a manager, and she wanted to find a way of quitting smoking. So I began with the usual preamble, and I told her about hypnosis, and she said, "Hard pass, no." And I asked her why, and she goes, "Because it's demonic."
Yeah.
And I was wearing black from top to toe, as I am now. I had a big pentagram thing, and I got this ring, which was a pentagram. And I looked at her squarely in the eye and said, "You could have a point there."
Okay. Yeah.
That completely broke her. She just sort of collapsed in laughter, and then we proceeded on. I just gave her the usual sort of spiel, which was, there is no magic, there is no sorcery, it's just science, blah blah blah. And basically, it got her to go into a trance, and she hasn't smoked for 6 years.
That's wonderful. I occasionally run into people and their response is, "I don't believe in hypnosis." That's just their first response. "I don't believe in hypnosis." And for me to engage with them, I say, okay, when someone says that, they mean one of three things. And you can't pick all three, but they mean either there is no such thing as hypnosis and it's all fake. Okay. They mean hypnosis is real, but it goes against all my faith, all of my religious believing. The third one is, oh, hypnosis is real and you're not going to fuck with me. So which one of those are we talking about? And just don't just pick all three. Which one? And then we can talk about it. But yeah, that was a wonderful response, Alex. Thank you so much. Okay, I want to, we're zooming down on time. I want to give you each a exercise that you can do for yourself that is designed to sort of help you communicate with your subconscious mind. This is one I've done, and it has a really strong effect when it's done well. If anyone here has had children, there's a moment when this newborn is there, and if you haven't had children, you've probably had an experience with this with maybe a child you care about or even a pet. But there's a moment where a parent is holding this newborn child and you see them and they weep. And you know, in that moment, all of those incredible hormones are going through their head, the oxytocin, and they're bonding with this child in this really strong emotion. That's the emotion you're going to try and muster. But you do it very simply. You start off by imagining with your subconscious mind. I don't have to imagine a person in front of me, myself. I just know that I'm talking to this part of me. And I want to treat it with so much love. And again, we start off by first incredible gratitude. And I would say something like, I love how well you have just given me insights and been able to talk with people and to give me inspirations. And you've done this so well. And you do all these incredible things for me. And I go through its full list with gratitude and feeling gratitude. And then I'll lead in by saying, I can use your help. You're in charge of this. You're in charge of the fact that I can wake in the middle of the night and it takes me so long to get to sleep. I know you can help me with that. If I wake up, well, first of all, I know you could just help me sleep. But if I wake up, just remind me how wonderful that sleep is. Just use every bit of your power to pull me back. And that's all I'm asking. And I know that you can do this. And then you go back to the praise and the love. And that's when I've done this, that's when I start to feel that incredible emotion. And this takes a conversation of 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Of course, your eyes have to be closed. You have to be in your own deep, isolated state. But the amazing thing is, you know, something is taking place because all of those emotions are there. And you agree that I'm not going to judge the results. I'm just going to be grateful. And I'm always going to give you support. It's just like you would say to a child that you care about. I'm always going to give you support. I'm always going to give you encouragement. I'm always going to thank you for the things you do so well. And if something's the matter, I'll let you know, and I will always do it with love and respect. Do that, and you're going to notice a really interesting response inside of you. So this is a self-hypnosis. This is a self-meditation. And what's interesting about it, having thought about this is exactly the same thing as a prayer. But a prayer is pointing outward. And this is pointing in. Again, it's not pointing to, it's pointing to something incredibly special. I'd like you to experiment with it and tell us share your results. Oh, Evan said, do you do this out loud or in your head? You do it however it works. I have done it mostly in my head, but I've had moments where I'm feeling it so much, I can feel my mouth moving. things like that. And sometimes I'll have that conversation while I'm doing something monotonous. And I think, well, here I am washing dishes. I could talk to my subconscious mind and give it a bunch of praise and gratitude and say, hey, you could super help me. You could help me creative. In fact, I was doing this some time ago. I was really exhausted, and I started talking to my subconscious mind. And I said to it something like, you're really creative. So why don't you? And all of a sudden it said, oh, I got to do this. Thank you, subconscious mind. And I got up and I started doing it. So it works sometimes that quickly. All right. Let's see. All right. Last question.
David here. I know everyone here is quite knowledgeable, I believe, but for the people who might be watching this on replay, what advice would you give a newer hypnotist about how to create safety and cooperation with a client's subconscious?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, treat everyone you work with as though they were someone you care about. That's the first thing, and someone you want to protect. Some people like me have gotten into hypnosis because they like the power stuff, but then they realize by doing this, if you're under my influence, you have to also be under my protection. You have to take that protection part very seriously. So you treat them with respect. You you give them encouragement. You do all the things that I mentioned earlier. Provide reassurance, create anticipation, strengthen their ego, build optimism, and let them know that there are successes where they just didn't notice them. So all those things. That's usually the best way to talk to a client in general, and they get it if when it's sincere. Okay.
Very well answered.
All right. For those of you who are listening, and who are listening on a recording, please feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. I would love to answer them, and I'd love to have more people on the call. We do this on a weekly basis. Joe, do you have any questions? Anything else we can add to this?
No, just when we do send out the flyer, this will be recorded and put up to watch later. So if you do have if you have a question and cannot make it, please email us the questions and we will try and get
Yes.
answered here or send an email back to you.
The email address is mindcontrolismybusiness@gmail.com. That's my personal email address. I will send you an invite through my Google Calendar. I will send you an email. It does help me if you are going to show up that you click the button that says you are going to show up. You don't have to. You can just show up and use the link. But it helps me know how many people are sincerely wanting to be here. All right. Last questions. Any last comments? Thank you, Evan. I appreciate it. Glad you're here. Anyone else? All right. Okay. Because you're here, you're not somewhere else. So I want to thank you for taking that sacrifice and spending your hour with me. We'll be back next week about the same time. And if you have questions, if you have ideas or topics of discussion, use that email address, send it to me. Go to YouTube. You can find my channel there with all the previous discussions that we've had. Guys, thank you so much.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Take care.